Right on. All right. Can you hear me? Oh, sorry, you're still there. Or you're still on mute.
Yep. It only took us a year to figure it out until we didn't need it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, oh, great. We're finally all getting the quirks of Zoom. Okay, back to in-person meetings. Although I assume Zoom's never really going to go away.
No, probably not.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for the help. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Yes, yes, I can see that all the agencies are on. I lost Matt Hogan for a second there, but I see that. I think we're ready to go.
Oh, don't lose Matt Hogan. All right. So, hey, good morning, everybody. Jackie Buchanan, normally Deputy Regional Forester for the Rocky Mountain region of the U.S. Forest Service. But today I am in my role as chair of the IGBC. I appreciate everybody coming back from yesterday with us today. We still have some very important, I think, things to get through. And so it's going to be another cram day. We do have a few folks that are missing that will be joining us shortly. But I'm going to do, David, I'll do a quick roll call and then get into a bit of the topics that we talked about covering first. Okay. Affirmation, David, thumbs up, good. All right, thanks. Okay, so Toby Boudreau for Idaho. He's going to be joining in about 45 minutes, I think. Ken McDonald, are you out there anywhere? Let's see.
Ken's not able to make it right now, but I think he's going to try to join later.
Okay. Hannah, I think I saw you. Is Hannah
I'm
also?
here. I'm here.
Hey.
Good morning, Jackie.
Great, thanks, Hannah. Thanks for being here. Rick King from, well, no, not Rick, Dan Thompson.
Present.
You're on. Okay, Dan from Wyoming, gotcha. Melanie Glossa, did you make it over from Teams? I see you. I think you're out there, Melanie. Dylan, she's showing up. Maybe she can't talk yet.
It looks like her audio is not working for some reason.
Yeah, everyone's having problems this morning. Okay, so Melanie, I can see you're there. Hopefully you'll get the audio worked out. Of course, I am here for Region 2. Do we have anybody on today from Region 4? Trisha, you're here.
Yeah, I'm on, Jackie.
Fantastic. And then did Debbie Holland make it on this morning from Region 6? I'm not seeing her, but Kristen, you're here. So we'll throw you in the mix as the Forest Service rep from 6-2 until Debbie shows up. She shows up. Hey. Okay, Park Service, Jennifer Carpenter, are you out there? I'm not seeing her. Karen was going to be in and out. Karen Taylor Goodrich, and I'm not seeing Park Service yet, David. So we'll make a note of that. Mr. Hogan, are you out there?
Yes, I'm here, Jackie.
Okay. Excellent. And is Jim Unsworth joining today, or is he? I don't see him up there. Okay, so for Jim. Mike Philbin, BLM, I know you're out there somewhere. Can you hear me, Mike? I think we're still having some audio issues, you guys.
Can you hear me now, Jackie?
I can, thank you.
Well, this is really weird. I'm using Zoom for audio, for visual, and then I'm using Zoom to speak, but my phone to hear.
Okay, well, yay for multiple devices. So thanks for being creative on technology. So appreciate that. Okay, and Frank, you are still doing double duty today, I think, right? Oh, Claudia, you're here.
No,
right?
Claudia's here.
Okay.
Hey, Jackie, I'm here.
Hey, good to see you. All right. We still don't, I don't think we have any of our Canadian friends joining us today. We got their update yesterday. JJ, I think, is tied up in the same meeting that Toby Boudreau is, so he'll be joining us in a little bit. We've got Kristen, I already confirmed that you are on. And then Kennard, is Ben Kennard on?
Ben Connard, yep.
Connor, sorry. Yeah, the
Morning,
names, I'm sorry if I messed that up a little bit,
No worries.
Ben. All right, got you. And then how about Jim White? Is Jim White on?
He's in that same Idaho meeting.
Oh, and hey, you guys, I just got a note from Jim Unsworth that said he needs a link to today's meeting. Can someone get that to Jim?
Yep, I'll do it.
Okay, the fun of technology. It's awesome. And then Hillary Cooley, please tell me, I think you're out there, right? Yes.
I'm here. I can't get my video on. Yeah, okay, I'm here.
Thanks. I'm feeling a little need for some confirmation. So thanks, Hillary. How about Scott Jackson? Are you out there?
I am. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good to see you. And then Lori Roberts, I know I've seen your face already, I believe, and you're going to help out this morning. Yeah. And then Frank, you are, all of you are the IGBC advisors. So Frank, I think saw your face earlier too. So, okay.
Yep. You just got Jennifer Carpenter as well.
Oh, fantastic. Welcome, Jennifer.
To you. Sorry. Yeah. Thanks.
And it appears that Jim has joined the other Zoom meeting link. So he's in the other Zoom meeting link. I just got a notification. So I don't know, David, if you can go get Jim into this one.
I just sent him the right link.
Great.
Yeah. So it's, appreciate everybody being a little tolerant and compassionate and flexible this morning with technology. And again, hopefully we'll have future meetings in person for the most part. So wanted to just take a moment this morning before we get going into the agenda and talk a little bit about both the letter I had received yesterday around the question of open meetings and maybe some concern around the meeting that was hosted maybe a month ago, the subcommittee meeting in the end of May, actually not even quite a month ago. And then even our executive session from 2 days ago. And so just wanted to touch on that a little bit. And IGBC, and I will do a formal response to the letter that I got from, I think it was Mr. Reisen. But the IGBC is a collaborative body of multiple agencies and states and partners, NGOs and tribal members. And so it is an open and collaborative group that work collectively on this topic of grizzly bear recovery and management. And so that's an overarching and core part of this group. And so I want to just affirm that we fully welcome and encourage public participation. Our charter, the IGBC charter, says that meetings will generally be open to the public and provide a time for public comment. The chair may call for an executive session, which would be limited to committee members and staff for discussions of sensitive topics such as personnel matters, litigation, or other confidential issues. And so that's on the, dang it, I keep losing my page here. That's on the on our charter, page 4. And so, everything we can possibly share openly and transparently, we want to. But there are times, and I think someone asked or questioned yesterday I said, well, we didn't have that much centered around litigation. And I can explain that a little bit. Of we didn't have, it wasn't like we had new litigation or something specific, but we did spend some time in our executive session talking about potential litigation, talking about some issues like that. We also spent a lot of time, and you've heard us referenced around David Diamond being new into the position. And so we had some discussion around roles, responsibilities, duties, personnel things that would not be part of the public. So, you know, our session the other day was, I feel, very appropriate for what we were covering. Now, the letter that we received, I want to address it a little bit, from Adam Ressing, and this also had the comment, I think, by Michelle Dietrich around the IGBC's Bitterroot Subcommittee meeting in May. And, you know, when you look at the agenda, I probably would look at it and say that most of it should have been open to the public, you know, per IGBC charter. And I truly do not think that there was any ill intent or intention to close out the public. I think we have, you know, a bunch of new folks coming into roles. The subcommittee, almost all of our subcommittee chairs have turned over. And so we are very grateful that someone like JJ actually is willing to step into that. And part of our role is to help him from the exec and help all of our folks to just be thoughtful and understanding of how we want to operate. And so, you know, recognizing that, you know, we do this mix of state and federal, and, you know, within agencies, different departments and different organizations, from the state side to the federal, you know, we're trying to always be mindful of the operational norms for those individuals. And we, as representatives of our agency, have to be mindful of our responsibility under our agencies or departments' guidelines. And so, but when you talk about a whole conglomerate of folks, you know, sometimes, again, not through any ill intent, things just, we maybe missed something. And so just want to recognize that. And I think that agenda was a great agenda. I think information should and would be shared out of that. And going forward into the future, you know, we'll endeavor to make sure that if any of us have an executive session, it is truly focused around those areas that are allowed for an executive session. And then our meetings, for the most part, for the majority of them, are open, and we welcome the public into them. So just want to kind of clear that out a little bit, and I will do a response. And we, you know, we will, going forward, do our best to ensure that there are no issues or concerns raised around that. David, did I miss anything? Or, you know, you and I talked a little bit last night, and when JJ and Toby come back on, and those folks, you know, if JJ wants to make a comment, we'll welcome that too. But did I miss anything, David?
I think so.
All right. So I just, mostly for our public's sake, just wanted to clear up some of that. But again, you know, I asked that everybody give a little bit of grace and understanding that I feel very assured that our folks all have the best intention. This is not any one group driving the work that we're doing or how we go about it. And so just ask that you know, we recognize that folks are learning, and a lot of new people coming in, and they're really working hard to do good work on behalf of the IGBC and the public. So I just want to rest on that. Okay. So David, I think now I can actually get to maybe the business at hand. And should I go over what we did yesterday, or do a summation at the end of the meeting?
Up to you.
I think I'll just catch everything. I'll do a final check-in today, or kind of run through it, so we can get on, since I've taken up a little bit of time this morning with that, and maybe get into, let me look, make sure I keep myself in line. Okay. So I think without much further ado, let's get into the budget committee update. And so the awesome Lori Roberts is queued up to help us walk through this. She and Toby and some other folks have been doing Toby Boudreau have been doing a lot of work around the budget and thinking through, how we move forward, what we want to move forward on. And Lori is, I'm sure, going to do a brilliant job of helping us all get on the same page with that. So, Lori. And there you go.
Yeah. Was trying to share my screen and unmute at the same time. So I will, can everybody see that slideshow? It should say budget committee.
Yeah, we gotcha.
Perfect. Okay. So last winter, just trying to give people a recap, and for the public that might not have been attending our last winter meeting. Last winter, we made a budget committee and we put together a budget committee. And so these were the members that are on the budget committee. So Toby Boudreau, who's the vice chair of the executive committee with Idaho Fish and Game, he is kind of the chair of our committee. And then Matt Hogan, Mike Philbin, Hannah Anderson, and Melanie Glossa. And then we decided that the IEO chair, which is what I am, should be on it. And then new to the group, because he's new to IGBC, David Diamond will also be on this committee. So that's just who the budget committee is. And so some things that we have been talking about or discussing in these meetings. So we've been meeting once a month, which I think is really good because it kind of keeps us up to speed with everything. But we've been talking about the annual budget and the bear resistant container testing program, the IEO small grant program, and other IEO projects beyond those small grants. And then just if any other projects come up or if we need to come up with other ideas, we're keeping those kind of in the back of our heads. And one thing that we did do was Toby Boudreau asked his marketing person with Idaho Fish and Game to kind of do to look over the bear resistant container testing program and to come up with some sustainable funding recommendations. And so they did this over the winter and spring, and we got the report in June. The budget committee actually hasn't really had a chance to discuss it, but it does come up with a lot of really great recommendations. And so I think this is going to be the next couple of meetings. This will definitely be a topic of our discussion to see how that works. So we wanted to just remind everybody that in the last 5 years, this is kind of how the budget model has been. All of the different federal agencies has put into a single pot, and then that single pot has kind of gone into different pots of money. The executive coordinator, Ellen Davis, was one of those. There was some operation money for travel, trainings, and meetings. And then we did have our IEO small grants. And then we had our WMI agreement. And then some of that WMI agreement went into the bear resistant product testing program. And some of the small grants the money was transferred to WMI for the grants that were not federal grants, so that WMI could transfer them to those particular parties. But this model is no longer really going to work for us. There's kind of some new ways that the money or that things have to be done. The Forest Service is now paying for the entire budget of the executive coordinator, so that is their contribution. But we still have the federal agencies that are contributing. And so what the budget committee came up with was kind of 4 different options on how we can work new agreements or who will be housing the money. And I guess one thing I should say is this is the last year of the 5-year WMI agreement. And so we need to renew that agreement and who is going to renew that agreement. These are all questions. And since David Diamond has just come on, I think this is day 10, day 9, something like that for David. This will be kind of something that he's going to work on first so that we can work out who's going to be housing the money. But these are just kind of some options that we thought of, and David will look into each of these options and then come up with the best recommendations since he's the executive coordinator. So the first option is that we stay the same. The federal agencies put into an interagency agreement with the Forest Service, and then that money gets doled out between operations, small grants, and the WMI agreement. We have a different DOI agency. We kind of recommended the Fish and Wildlife Service just because they give the most money, but that it doesn't have to be that way. But some DOI interagency agreement with together, and then they have an agreement with WMI is option 2. And then option 3 was that each of the individual federal agencies have an agreement with WMI, and then we can administer the money that way to the different grants and programs that we do. And then of course, the fourth option is that if we don't have a WMI, how would we do it? And so each of the agencies would have to give money to those programs. And then who would be taking care of the funds for the bear resistant container program is kind of the question. So those are the 4 different options that we came up with. And like I said, having David come on as the executive coordinator is going to be super helpful because he can actually take a deeper dive into these 4 different options and come back to our meeting and let us know what would be the best. David, do you want to, that's all I had was our entire slideshow from.
Sure, but I think, so what you've just covered, Lori, and it really is terrific to have this budget committee that you created in December and to have the executive engagement in that committee. But of course, what was just presented essentially is our questions of mechanics, sort of how we set it up. And I think there's a higher level question that the rest of the agenda this morning is going to touch on, which is what are the priorities? Well, what should the IGBC be investing its scarce resources in? So you're about to present on IEO and some new directions and initiatives in the IEO world, but there could be science, there could be conflict reduction. There's other things that potentially are worthy of that investment. And I do think some direction on that is useful because I sort of believe that form should follow function. And it's terrific to have this sustained investment from each of the 4 federal agencies in the IGBC. And it's sort of incumbent on us to keep showing a return on that investment, that they're putting in those dollars and we're accomplishing then the goals of the IGBC with a program of work that's sustained over time. So, we've got work plan later this afternoon, we've got structure later this morning. And I do feel like those need to feed back then into, and okay, then how are you spending your money as a result of what you've decided are your top level priorities?
Yeah, well said, David. And you're right. There's a tie and a link to all of this. They're really not separate or individually standing. So I think hopefully as the rest of the morning agenda goes on, it'll kind of all line up and flesh out so that you can kind of see the framework for it. I'll do a real quick check if there are any questions. I don't see anything in the chat. Same as yesterday, right, Dylan? If anybody had a question to do the raise the hand thing, or
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, you can hover over your name and raise your hand. And then if you're a panelist, I guess feel free. Jackie can call on you, or if you're an attendee, I can unmute you.
okay. I am looking. I do not see anybody in the panelist side. I don't see anybody on the attendee side. I don't see anything in the chat. Okay. Well, Lori, let's move on to the next topic and see if that, with the additional information, brings out some questions. And I forgot, Lori Roberts is the Montana Fish and Wildlife and is chair of our Information Education Outreach Subcommittee. So Lori is a really critical member to this team and does a lot of work on our behalf. And so, Lori, how about if you get into the IEO update?
And Lori, sorry to stop you there, but just looking at the agenda reminds me that the other, in addition to that mechanical question of how to structure the agreements, there's also the near-term question of FY21, and you're going to touch on that a little bit here, I think.
Yeah, I thought I would put it in since Toby called me last night and asked me to do the budget one. I thought I would put more of the funds that we're spending now and potentially going to put into the FY21 or 22 budget in my IEO presentation, because it makes more sense when you can see the overall picture, I felt like.
Great.
So.
Thanks.
So yes, hello again. I'm putting on my IEO hat. And this, being this chair, and this is the beginning of my second year doing this, it's been really rewarding and a really fun group to be a part of. And it's really opened my eyes up to how many people are interested in collaboration and doing this work and are passionate about it. And so it's been really fun to be the IEO chair. Can you see my slides, hopefully? I shared the right screen. Okay, perfect.
Yes, we can.
So we don't have much turnover in the IEO subcommittee because most of the subcommittees or the ecosystems keep their IEO chairs. The one that does turn over is the Bitterroot. They rotate it with the chair, which is not a bad idea, but so we still have Denise Schultz from the North Cascades. Kim Annis does double duty in the Cabinet-Yaak and the Salish. Dylan Tabish is our Northern Continental Divide ecosystem. So Jen Burns is with the Bitterroot. Daniel Euler works on the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. And then of course, David Diamond will be joining because the executive coordinator joins in our committee. And then I added Chris Smith because he does sit in on most of our subcommittee meetings, and he is a really integral part to moving the money moving the funds for us and helping us know if it's a project that, yes, we think we can go ahead and do that or not. So he's just been a really big help in our subcommittee meetings. So I didn't get a chance to tell you last year which projects we were going to fund because we actually, we had a little bit of extra money from Ellen Davis retiring. So as you can see over the years, we've only been able to, well, I guess I should start out with, we've always had $36,000 to fund IEO with these small grant projects where people apply and we fund different projects. The last year we asked for an additional $9,000. So we had $45,000 to fund some projects. And then with the, I don't want to call them vacancy savings, but with extra money because we didn't pay for an executive coordinator, we actually gave $71,000 in small grant projects. And so you can see over the years, we haven't been able to fund all the projects, but in 2021, there was actually only one project we didn't fund, and it just didn't fit into the criteria or our IEO mission or that we had. So that was the one project, but the rest we did fund. And so just kind of, I'm gonna go through these real quick. So starting with our all ecosystems, Fish, Wildlife and Park is putting together, they're updating their resource guide for educators. Defenders of Wildlife is still doing an amazing job with electric fencing and their outreach program. And then we added People and Carnivores is working on a human-bear coexistence in the High Divide. And we put this into the all ecosystem category because if a project can stretch across multiple ecosystems, and so People and Carnivores in the High Divide are kind of in between Bitterroot, NCDE, and the greater Yellowstone, we added them into this all ecosystem category. Down in the Bitterroot, the Forest Service is going to be getting some signs and educational materials. Idaho Fish and Game is working on a charging bear simulator to for their bear spray trainings. And then the Wind River Institute is doing some partnership with their wildlife bear shepherding dogs. And then they're also working on mapping human bear conflict hotspots in the Lolo. Most of these are obviously black bear conflicts, but then to kind of help people see where those hotspots are. So if as grizzly bears move that way, they can take care of those hotspots. The North Cascades, we actually only had one project sign or go ask for funding, and that was Defenders of Wildlife, and they are still working on their bear spray awareness training in the North Cascades, which is a great project, and they've come up with some really good quality products. In the Salish ecosystem, the Kalispell Tribe and the Washington Department of Fish and Game joined forces, and they're doing some household outreach. I think door knockers or magnets or stickers. The Forest Service is on the Colville Forest is doing some food storage lockers. Idaho Fish and Game in the Selkirks is working on grizzly bear management and education, enforcement and education project. In the Cabinet-Yaak, the Yellowstone to Yukon group is hiring a bear ranger. The Forest Service, the Kasenka district is getting some supplies and materials. And then the Plains and Thompson Falls district is getting some bear aware educational brochures. Greater Yellowstone, Bear Creek Council, some bear resistant container cans are going to Gardner. Forest Services, both Forest Service, the Custer Gallatin, sorry, Beaverhead Deer Lodge, and the Helena Lewis and Clark are adding signs and brochures. And then we've gotten some new ones, the Jack Creek Preserve Foundation, the Grizzly Bear Conservation Management Field School is getting some funds, and the Western Landowner Alliance is peer-to-peer guidance for grizzly bear conflict reduction practices. And then Wyoming Game and Fish, we gave some fund for their hunter bear safety video. Northern Continental Divide, the Glacier Institute, you can just see it's a lot of education materials. I want to point out the Sealy Lake School District, they put on a great school day. They've actually already done this because it was in May. But they put on it was an outdoor school day and they went from station to station and learned about different bear awareness outreach in Sealy Lake. And then we're getting some bear ranger supplies and education materials. So in all, the interesting thing about this year was we kind of had a shift in the percentage of where the money goes to. And so it used to be that a lot of it was Forest Service. The money would go back to the Forest Service. And that's because they would fund a lot of the bear ranger. We would fund a lot of the bear ranger positions or give funding so that those bear ranger positions could be extended. But this year, the Forest Service kind of changed their policies, and we weren't allowed to give money to salary positions. So we had, and we just had more NGOs that signed up for funding. So I think it's a cool shift. I think it's good. We're really helping out a lot of people and getting out a lot of educational materials there. So I was trying to find a fun way to show who all of our collaborators are that we've given funding to. So of course we have our agents that are a part of the IGBC, but we are making partnerships with a lot of great groups and they're doing really cool stuff. And so we kind of just wanted, these are all the different NGOs, agencies, tribes that we have collaborated with over the last 5 or 6 years and given money to. And hopefully this page will grow and grow, and so you can't even see whose logos are on there. And we hope to continue to work with these groups. I will say that we've also kind of started collaborating with other groups like the Kootenai Valley Resource Initiative and the Pacific Northwest Trail hiking groups. They are all very interested in following IGBC messaging and having IGBC partner with training their bear rangers and things like that. So we're working with those guys, not on a funding side, but on a different side. So those are the projects we funded for FY 21. But we also have some, have some current IEO projects that are on their way. One is the David Booth proposal that we approved last year. His report is due this fall, and those I have on the slide the 2 objectives that he's going to be writing up a final report for. So that's underway. We have really good news in IEO world. The website is being redesigned. And so we will hopefully be launching our new website at the end of September. According to the timeline, we awarded the contract to a company called Snow Ghost. It's here in Kalispell and where I am, I guess. And so we had a couple of people put in proposals and we reviewed them. It was Chris Smith, Dylan Tabish, Kate Smith, and I reviewed the proposals and we selected Snow Ghost. They put together a really good proposal, a really great timeline. And so hopefully the new website will be launched this fall, early winter. And then once that website does get launched, we will be starting the webinar series that we talked about I think it was at the last summer meeting, the last summer meeting, we suggested in the time of COVID, a great way to get information out to people is these webinars. I know COVID's kind of hopefully getting less and less and we can do more in person, but I still think these webinars are a great way to reach out people that can't attend bear fairs or bear awareness trainings in person. So we are still going to go forward with that. And we have some great scheduled topics. You know, we have Fish and Wildlife Service and Defenders of Wildlife talking about electric fencing. We will have some of our bear specialists from around the different areas talk about different conflicts. We were going to put in some science in there as new science comes out in these different ecosystems on bears and things like that. So look forward to that project starting when our new website comes out. And we also provided, we've provided some Inert bear spray cans for training. We did provide each of the subcommittee chairs with a box of 40 Inert cans to hand out in their subcommittee or in their ecosystems. We did have some bear specialists ask for some extra cans that we had, and then we had some NGOs that just needed a couple extra cans and they didn't have the funding for them, and we did have some. So I think that's great. The more people that can get those trainings and actually feel and know what it looks like to spray a bear spray is going to be helpful for anybody. So one thing that is on our mind as we talk in our information and education and outreach subcommittee is this where grizzly bears are, where we're seeing grizzly bears expand. And so we do feel like that each subcommittee does a really good job. And that's, you know, we have these information and education people, and they give us, and we get updates in each of the subcommittees. They do a really good job in their ecosystem. And so when we have our subcommittee meeting, talk about, well, what is the bigger picture for IGBC? Where should IEO for this IGBC executive committee look at? And really, because each ecosystem is being taken care of, but we're seeing this great expansion, we felt like the IEO subcommittee, we should come up with some ideas for those areas in between. And how can we help those areas in between? And how can we take what the executive committee, what their goals are, and expand our IEO program for not only the ecosystems, but also those areas in between where expansion is happening. And so one of the things that we started, the IGBC, the executive committee wanted us to move forward with was this idea of a Bear Smart community, and coming up with a Bear Smart community criteria and certification for IGBC. And so we put together a working group, and here are the members of the working group. So you have all of the IEO chairs of all the different ecosystems, but then we have Kim Johnston, and she actually was the one that brought this idea to me and said, hey, I think this would, you know, she works for People and Carnivores, and they actually have started started doing this program in a small community, I want to say Virginia City. But she thought it shouldn't be a people and carnivores program, it should be a larger scale program, and IGBC would be the perfect place for that. So she's been a really big help. She's on the ground doing it already, so has a lot of great suggestions. And then we have Dusty Lasser with Wyoming Fish and Game, and he's been great because he does the Bear Smart communities, or the Bear Wise program, sorry, in Wyoming. So he has a ton of experience doing that. And then Mike Battery, we've included Mike Battery. He runs the Bear Smart BC program. And then we just added Jeremy Nicholson, and he works for Idaho Fish and Game and has been doing conflict management down there for a really long time. So is also bringing a lot of great suggestions. It's a great group. We are having some really good conversations. And so I just kind of wanted to share with you some of the beginnings of what we have, and we're writing the document right now. So the 6 criteria that we came up with to becoming a Bear Smart criteria or community is, the first one is to form a Bear Smart committee. And so one thing that Mike Battery made very clear to us is that this program has to be community driven. We don't want to force this program on anybody. It is, I'm not going to lie, it's probably it is a lot of work, but if you take it in steps and you put together a really great timeline, it can happen. And so the first thing you need to do is form that Bear Smart committee. And we have in the chapter a list of people that we recommend. And it has to be you definitely have to have like your local solid waste company on board. You need to have people within the community planning. Community members are always welcome. Any kind of NGO that may be helpful. And then, yeah, I mean, just anybody that is going to be bring good information and helpful to this committee. And then after you form that committee, you need to assess your community. So you go around and you look at your city parks, look at where your green spaces are, look at what kind of habitat, if you're up close in the mountains or if you're down in a valley, do you have a river corridor that wildlife use? So really go through and assess your community, how many restaurants, how does the garbage get picked up, things like that. And so after you assess that community, we help you go through the steps of actually writing your Bear Smart plan. How are you going to use your community assessment to hopefully make changes in your community to help if you have any kind of bears that travel through there or are on the outskirts? You're not going to have any enticements for them to come in. So getting bear resistant containers. And we're trying to, actually, I'll say that next, sorry. So we have a really good list of how to write that plan. And then the last 3 criteria are how are you going to have, what kind of Bear Smart education plan do you have? We want to make sure that there's something within your schools for your grade school kids, middle school and high school kids. And that could be just showing them how to use bear spray or what to do when they see a bear, or it can be a larger program. But we also want you to have some kind of Bear Smart education for your community, and then potentially Bear Smart education for your travelers and your recreationists and people that are coming into your community. And that could be as easy as making sure you have Bear Smart brochures in your Chamber of Commerce, making sure the Forest Service or the Park Service, or if whatever kind of visitor center, if you have a regional office for FWP, that they have Bear Smart education brochures. The 5th one is the solid criteria is the solid waste plan. And this is kind of one of the most important ones. Looking at what your solid waste plan is right now. What time is pickup? When do people get to put out their containers? Where does it go? How bear proof is that area? And then we've given some suggestions to put into your plan of how you're going to move towards a better Bear Smart community. And so, you know, doing a donut. So the outskirts, the houses and communities out on the outside of the town maybe are the first ones to get bear resistant containers. So you kind of have this barrier, and making sure, you know, people don't put out their garbage till the morning of if they have pickup, or how many people have bear resistant containers and stuff like that. So we're trying to come up with a lot of different ideas so that it will help a lot of different sizes of communities, types of communities that have different kinds of pickup. And yeah. And then the sixth one are incentives, enforcements, and regulations to help the community become bear smart. And so these are different funding options to help cost share. If we really want to recommend that people put into bylaws about enforcement, so enforcing your container can't be put out till the morning of, or I mean, that's kind of the biggest one, is the timing of when people can put out these containers. But and then regulations. So these are the 6 different criteria that we've come up with, and we are working on writing each of those chapters as we speak. So one of the big questions then is what types of or how are we going to certify these people? And I will tell you that right now, this is still a big question mark in our group. We have come up with some ideas. Do we have a minimum? Do we have levels? Do we have different categories, different star ratings? We're really working out a lot of different options because we want to make it so that as people are trying, or as they're working towards becoming bear smart, we will still recognize them. Because it's important, and I think any steps that any community takes is a big step for bears and a big step for that community. So that's still to come. And then a big part of this guide is making sure that we give a lot of references. We are giving examples of community assessments, these human bear management plans for communities, what it looks like to give an annual progress report for communities that are doing this Bear Smart program, and then what education progress reports look like. And so those are going to be definitely kind of permanent, but then we're going to have these kind of ever-changing lists of things. So the IGBC bear resistant product list, different educational messaging and program deliveries. So these are kind of a lot of the appendixes that we're putting into this document so that you can go through the criteria and read what you need to do. But then if you need specific help with something, so preventative solutions, if you need specific help on preventative solutions by attracted type and garbage specific solutions, you can pull that appendix and actually look through it without having to try to find it within a document. So we're trying to make the document and this whole program very user friendly too. So I will say that some of the budget items that we're going to be coming to the budget committee with and asking for are the potential of creating a logo. We would like to use the IGBC logo, but maybe tweak it a little bit to kind of have this Bear Smart community concept to it. And then there's a lot of people working on this document. And so hiring a writer editor to actually make it a cohesive document and just someone more professional than us. And we're all very busy. This is kind of a second job for us right now, or a lot of us. But having someone help write and edit the document. And then future budget items is the idea of having a Bear Smart community fund. And so having a small, a pot of money, big or small, but anything would help to help these Bear Smart communities to cost share waste containers, hire a wildlife consultant to help them assess their community or write their bear management plan, and then signs and education, and then any signs and educational materials that these communities would need. So it would be really great if we could have a fund where these communities could apply and have some kind of cost sharing agreement. So that's what we're currently working on. But we are always kind of keeping the 5-year goals that the executive committee comes up with in our minds. And like I said, each individual ecosystem is doing a really great job on their own. But where our IEO subcommittee looks at is kind of the bigger picture and these areas in between, and being with the grizzly bear expansion. And so the themes that kind of come up with us and we continue to think about are connectivity, recreation, and conflict, because those are themes that are in the executive committee's 5-year goals. And so some future project ideas, they could be for FY22. One thing, and I think it's a great idea, is to have some kind of display, an IGBC display in airports that says, welcome to Bear Country. And we have kind of picked out, and this is it, we're not limited to this, but these were kind of the 4 that we looked at that were, they're in between ecosystems. The people that come to these 4 airports are probably going to be entering into Bear Country. And so giving them an idea of what they need to be aware of was key to us. And so nobody wants brochures anymore, or rat cards, I think they're called, because someone has to stock them and it's just kind of a constant job. But we were thinking of in baggage claim areas, because that's where most people go. They have to pick up their luggage, especially if they're on vacation or they're going backpacking or doing something like that. They have a lot of luggage. There's always some time at the baggage claim area. And so we're looking at producing some kind of display, for a large display on the wall that says, welcome to Bear Country. It has the IGBC logo on it and all of the agency, logos, the agency logos, and then a QR code. And that QR code can be scanned with phones, and it will take you immediately to the IGBC website, and that will give them information on food storage orders, on how to use a bear spray, and we can add whatever we want to it. So I have talked to a couple of the airports just to kind of see if this is something that's even doable, and the Spokane airport, I will say, is very he was very into it and just kind of wanted to continue the discussion on how big it would be. We were initially thinking that it would be something that was on the ground, that you could see the size of a black bear and a grizzly bear, and that you could take photos with. But he actually said something that was on the wall, so that it doesn't have to be moved. People won't mess with it. The cleaning, it's not something that they have to move to clean around. Things like that would be better. So we're getting great feedback from the airports. And if this is a project that IGBC is interested in, we can move forward with that. And then that's why the cost, I should mention too, the cost is going to range a lot. And so if it's just a wall hanging, it'll be on the shorter end. But if we do make it a more elaborate display, when we were talking about it, in the back of my mind, it came up as like a prom display. You take the prom pictures. But if we don't make it that elaborate, it'll be a smaller cost. And then these are just some other future project ideas. Daniel Euler has been working with the Forest Service to come up with this virtual bear training where you put your phone in a wearable cardboard sunglasses container, and it's a 3D virtual reality. And so we would like to really help her advertise that, or kind of come up with, do you need additional funds so we can get this out to more people, because it will probably be a great tool. And then people can be there with their Inert bear spray cans and just be spraying nothing, but in their minds they're spraying, and when they're looking on the phone, they're spraying a bear. We would like to redo the WWO Bear Country brochure. The Western Wildlife Outreach, Lorna Smith, I know she's just become a county commissioner, and she has not really renewed any kind of IEO contracts with North Cascade, but we don't have the rights to the brochure. And I've tried to get a hold of her. She's just not returning anything. So, but a lot of people are interested in that brochure. It was a great brochure. A lot of time was spent making that brochure. And so we would like to redo that brochure so that we have it. The Defenders of Wildlife came up with these great Keep Calm and Carry Bear Spray stickers. We would like to get more of those out. I think they're cool. It's a great message. It might help. And then for future, the IEO Summit, which is something that Montana Fish and Wildlife and Parks put on a couple of years ago or last year, right before the pandemic. We would like that to become an IGBC summit. It was super informative, really helpful. We'd like it to be every 3 to 5 years and maybe rotating around to different ecosystems. So just some future project ideas from the IEO subcommittee. And with that, we'll take any questions. I don't know if there has been any or.
Yeah, so just as a reminder to folks, as Dylan and I said earlier, if you have a question, you can raise your hand. And I'm, for some reason, not seeing, there's something in the chat. Let me.
Trisha O'Connor has her hand up.
Okay, Trisha.
Yeah, thanks, Lori. A great presentation. And maybe I don't have a question so much as just an endorsement for the work that you're all doing. And I think since Jim's not on today, I can speak on behalf of the Yellowstone Subcommittee that, you know, this whole idea of kind of assessing our outreach efforts and then the whole, you know, sort of giving communities better tools to become, you know, bear smart. It was 2 of our highest priorities. And I think this work actually makes our subcommittee work. We're gonna have to do less work if you guys are taking it on. And I think that's just great. And I think that's the power of just demonstrating the power of collaboration across these wider geographic areas. And this is a great example of where I do think it's helping the subcommittee. So awesome update, and really, really appreciate all of that everyone's doing.
Good, thank you.
Trisha, and I thought I saw Jennifer Carpenter, your hand was up, but then your hand went down.
Yeah, it's fine. Totally second Trisha's comments and really excited about the Bear Smart Communities initiative and looking forward to seeing that roll out. And then I had a question about the mechanics of FY21 funding, which I can take offline and work with Lori on if needed to get some FY21 money transferred from us to some of those programs. Thanks.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Excellent.
So I will say, so Dan Thompson, he kind of brought up a good point that a lot of these IEO projects, we are now asking people if we can have that we're all sharing. So if someone makes a sticker, you know, anybody can use that. And so, you know, because he said would like to share the Wyoming video with the group at some point. And yeah, we, you know, we're really trying to make it so that the projects that we're paying for, we kind of get the products, and so that we can then share and other people can use and use across the ecosystem. So thanks for that.
So it looks like Scott Jackson is queued up with a question.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Lori, for lots of good information. I wanted a quick question about the website redesign. I know you just got Snow Ghost on board. Will there be some opportunities? Will they be reaching out to folks on the committee or those of us that you know, insert information onto the website periodically as to there's, you know, to get some ideas and some input onto our thoughts on the website design?
Yes, we have, as soon as you know, the first thing is we're going to have a meeting, and so yeah, we will let any input you have is great input, and if you want to be included, we'll add you to the group or that meeting. But yeah, we're going to try to redesign it to make it more efficient, but then also how can we grow it? Because we have programs that we're going to add to it, and you know, the webinar and the Bear Smart containers and the Bear Smart communities and things like that. So
perfect. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, I see nothing in the show. Dan Thompson, your hand is up.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up from what Lori said. That video is through Wyoming Outfitters and Guides, and it looks like it is publicly available. So David Diamond has that link. It's a good video. It's a really well done video. I think it'd be a template for the future. It has some behavioral circumstances to deal with, and I think it's really a well-rounded video. We're actually going to try to produce our own video, because that's one thing that we all know is kind of missing, other than the well, it's been updated, but that the safety video that we've all shown 1,000 times. Trying to do something, and maybe that's some of the virtual things you're talking about, but trying to understand bear behavior, which is so difficult until you've been there. And
Yeah.
so that's something where Dusty's been working really hard to try to put something together for that, and that's something that can be shared with the group as well. But then I did ask, do we get a grandfathered in to call our Bear-wise communities that we started in 2005? I don't want to have to change all them. I think people.
No, we're not asking you to change their name. No,
I
and
know.
I think it'll be great to have, Dusty we were going to use some of your Bear-wise communities as example, things that they do. So
Please do. I mean,
yeah,
as
that's
you
why
said,
we have Dusty on that group. So
yeah, the community buy-in is absolutely essential. I mean, when this started 15 years ago in the North Fork in Wapiti, that was, gaining national attention for bears in the schoolyard,
yeah.
And there was a lot of animosity, but boy, it really turned into a hell of a program, and we really built on it. So happy to help out where we can.
Yep. And we appreciate, Dusty's been great on the group and has a lot of good information. So
He's quick-witted.
like all you Wyoming guys.
Yeah.
And David did put that in the chat, the link, right, David, to that video. And so folks can grab it and take it, look at it.
Perfect.
Okay. And Trisha O'Connor is encouraging everyone to take a look at it. So copy that. I am not seeing any other questions or items outside of that in the chat. Well, Lori, you covered a lot and did an awesome job, just like I expected you to. And so thank you. Again, I think this whole day kind of builds upon one topic on top of another on top of another. So hopefully when we get through it, it'll make even, greater, easier connections. So thank you for that. Thank you for that ongoing work.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
Okay, and we have been joined by Mr. Boudreau. So I'm going to actually queue up this next discussion, and then Toby's going to walk us through it. And we have this, we're trying to figure out what's the best title for this, and we landed on IGBC organization discussion, which is a pretty broad, overarching topic. But we've got a 40-year track record, and it's pretty impressive. This group, IGBC, has, I would say, been very successful in achieving what we set out to. But since last December, when we had our winter meeting and Martha was transitioning out, we all, I think, kind of agreed that we achieved what we were working towards in the past, and maybe now was the time to look forward, in the coming decades and begin a discussion about what are the next steps, kind of reflecting on IGBC's mission and goals and structures, especially the idea of geography and representation, and because things have changed, situation has changed, where bears are and population, there's just been things that have happened. And so we thought that this might be the time to head down that road. I have heard widespread support for intentional efforts to improve what we do and how we do it, and taking note of what has happened in the last 40 years and where we were and where we are today. We don't have agreement or any decision around, what that is going to look like. Toby is going to present kind of a little history of the work that we've kind of bring you up to speed for some work that's been done to start to hone in on some proposals. There is, but there's not any one proposal that we have zeroed in on. There is support for maintaining an ecosystem structure for coordination relationships, but there's also that, again, recognition there may be some duplication. And we definitely, even the last couple of days, has clearly indicated that there's always room for improved communication and to continue to strive towards keeping folks involved. There's also a need to do some work potentially in some new geographies. All of us agreed that there's no intent to add additional layers to bureaucracy or anything that would lessen the ability to just keep moving forward and focusing on the critical work. So for today's discussion, as Toby cues us up, I personally, and I think the group though, is curious on where members of the IGBC are, on this topic. And so this is a presentation and then feedback. We, interested in how does IGBC serve communities outside the lines that we currently are living in, when traditional subcommittees no longer represent the broader distribution of the bears, and we're in areas that we're getting conflicts in because of that. Also curious, how does the IGBC represent counties, tribes, landowners, and NGOs, etc. Want some input on that. And then how does, we can discuss, how does the IGBC make decisions? And, we've had this discussion around the meetings and what goes on in executive and open. And so anything that is at decision time is in those open meetings. We can't make decisions in executive sessions per se, but want to talk a little bit about that or get some input. And then how does IGBC work scale from a place-based to a region-wide and maybe vice versa, back and forth on that. And then, we recognize that there are litigation risk out there. And is there some input around, how do we want to think about that? And how do we recognize that? And so that's out of this conversation, and it's a pretty deep and meaty one. So, that's some of the things that I'm hoping will gin up with questions and input after Toby does the presentation. So, Mr. Boudreau, I have laid out kind of the intent behind this, and I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of set the stage and walk folks through what you're thinking, what we're all thinking.
All right. Well, thank you, Jackie. Appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Maybe. Here we go. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. As Jackie had pointed out, we've sort of been talking about this since December of 2019. And, there's been a lot of thought that's gone into it. Obviously, it's a basic proposal, and not all the intricacies have been worked out, nor, as Jackie has pointed out, no decisions have been made. So I just want to go through these, about 20 slides, and and then we'll open it up for questions and comment. But the IGBC mission basically is to achieve recovery and delisting and support ongoing conservation of grizzly bear populations after delisting. And the scope of the geography is the Western United States. And obviously, our approach is for interagency coordination of policy planning, management, research, and communication are the overarching responsibilities of the IGBC. You know, I love people's quotes, and you know, in thinking about this, I was like, you know, I think this one fits really well, and that is, you know, we will always get what we have if we keep doing things the same way. So, I guess a lot of people have asked the question, what is broken? Well, nothing is broken beyond repair. Nothing is, you know, this proposal isn't about, you know, criticizing what has been done over the last 40 years. But I think it's an opportunity to change and adapt to really meet the needs of the people and the bears and all the agencies and entities that deal with bears in the West. You know, and I really think that bears are indeed rewriting the recovery plans every day. You know, as we put down words, they are changing our minds as biological systems often do. You know, and I think and we already see organic change and adaptation happening in IGBC. Bears are expanding beyond the administrative lines that we set up, you know, 30 years ago. Bears are moving between ecosystems, which are all signs that bears are doing well. They're doing better than anybody expected them to do in, you know, the matter of 3 or 4 decades. And I think we could do better about how we assess bears and, you know, putting some consistency behind some of the science, you know, might be one way to reduce litigation and put everybody on the same level playing field of how we assess bears populations over the entire range. And like I said, you know, groups like the IEO committee has a range-wide group, yet every subcommittee also has an IEO committee. You know, another change that happened is the Selkirk and Cabinet-Yaak ecosystems are covered by one subcommittee. I mean, those are things that happened already. You know, and the commonalities that, you know, bear information is the same no matter where. You know, it's the same messages everywhere, which make sense to have one committee that spreads the same information to all the range of grizzly bears. You know, I believe that bears get into trouble everywhere in the same sort of manner. And I think that, you know, one of the reasons that, I present this is, you know, limited budgets and staff need to be utilized to the maximum extent and reduce redundancies, because we don't have extra money or extra people if we could do things more efficiently. And I think it's important that, you know, their efforts are making a difference all over the boundaries and beyond. You know, I think it's important to note that bears, you know, obviously are expanding beyond the administrative boundaries of ecosystems and demographic monitoring areas and recovery zones. You know, and it's important to land management agencies, of course, state wildlife management agencies that are dealing with a lot of the everyday, day-to-day work that goes on with grizzly bears. And it's important to the public. I mean, there are people who didn't expect 30 years ago to have grizzly bears out in their wheat fields or walking through their pastures far from where they thought grizzly bears could ever exist. You know, we've got great examples, you know, of GYE bears going south into Wyoming to new places, and I would guess those are the ones that are potentially moving north into the big holes also. And, you know, Selkirk Cabinet-Yaak bears You know, from genetic information, we know that one showed up 4.9 miles away from the Taco John's in Grangeville, Idaho. It didn't stay there, but they're making big forays, and I think everybody needs to be aware of that. You know, this is a slide that Lori actually showed in her last presentation, and this is the maybe present map that the Fish and Wildlife Service put together, but all the blue areas are places where bears may be present. And you can see that we're busting out of the seams. And I think that the people, the public, the agencies that are outside of those, the administrative boundaries, they're not getting the same information and not included in the same discussions as people within. And I think that I think it would be a benefit to bears and bear conservation if we could actually expand those areas to include those folks and those agencies and those land management units. Now, this is an example of where bears are being found in North Idaho in the Panhandle. The map on the left is the Washington-Idaho boundary is about 1/3 of the way in, and you can see that they're getting grizzly bear DNA, all from Washington, from basically from Highway 31 all the way over to Bonners Ferry. And if you slip to the next map, which is not at the same scale, and I apologize for that, you can see the same Lake Pend Oreille, and not too far away, of course, on the other side of Highway 95 are more bears. And obviously, we're reacting to that, and the Fish and Wildlife Service is helping with putting a bear technician in Bonners Ferry, because there are bears everywhere in between the Selkirks and the Cabinets. And obviously, those are places that people live, and they're also getting into trouble. So, it's hard to recognize two different subcommittees or two different, ecosystems when the bears are pretty much continuously distributed across the landscape. This is another map from the Fish and Wildlife Service that basically shows that the Selkirks and the Cabinet-Yaak and the NCDE virtually all touch. So having 3 subcommittees or 2 subcommittees is sort of a false, it's sort of a false sense of where bears actually are and where they're distributed. And I think that, as Chairman Buchanan, put this, obviously, litigation is one of those things that, we think about at the IGBC, because we want bears delisted. And, the remnant analysis is an important one. And you can't leave a population that is unrecoverable in the end. So it's, this is a great map that shows that, well, maybe those bear populations aren't really that separated. Maybe it's an administrative thing and not a biological thing. And I think consistency between ecosystems is also something really important, and relates to litigation, but it also relates to how the public and even agency staff relate to bears and understand bear information. I mean, we got population estimation techniques that are different for several ecosystems. The bear management units, I'll show you a slide, but they're definitely different between the Selkirk and the Cabinet-Yaak and the NCDE. And I think that we could provide consistency would actually help us manage bears better, and hopefully at some point in the future, delist bears. the abundance estimate, we've got the GYE, which uses Chow-2, which is augmented by aerial and ground observations and mortality information. We got the NCDE, which is, started with a genetic marker capture, and then, additive with annual monitoring, and the Selkirks and cabinets are different from those. And so we've got different agencies using different techniques, and then we've got, the Where's Waldo wide-ranging bears, which, if they don't fit in with it within a line, they're not part of an ecosystem. And I think that, recognizing that those bears are indeed part of the whole is super important to the future of bears. This is an example of the bear management unit size difference. I mean, you don't even need to see the math that's in the table on the right, but you can see that in the Northern Continental Divide, the areas, the bear management units are bigger. And in the Cabinet-Yaak and Selkirk, they're much smaller, like to the point of being 25% the size of an average bear unit in the NCDE. And I think that relates back very well to recovery and recovery criteria. And if we have a bunch of little areas that need to have X number of females, or percentage of those units need X number of females to fulfill a recovery criteria, it's a lot harder if the area is smaller. Obviously, bears cover big areas, and I think that it's no fault of anybody's. I think that the size of the area probably led to those decisions way back when. But I think it's time that we seriously take a look and analyze if that is really the best for bears and bear biology and bear management. So what does this proposal mean for bears? I think if delisting and recovery is really the objective, then we need to do better. And I think it's important to understand that people are the key to bear recovery. I mean, obviously, if people weren't willing to be tolerant, then we wouldn't have as many bears as we do. If people who worked for the agencies and communicated with everybody that comes to bear country, wasn't passionate, we probably wouldn't have as many, non-lethal encounters. I think that, and I think that it's, people will continue to shape the future of bear recovery. Having all those people involved at some extent, or at least informed, I think is really important. And people are struggling in some areas to coexist with bears. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of conflict. And I know that everybody does a great job with trying to reduce that, and the work that continues every single day is important for both people and the bears. And I think that, we need to distinguish, Endangered Species Act recovery and state management of delisted populations, and the risk of eroding public support if ESA recovery appears to keep moving goalposts and is, a rare earth element unattainium. It's not going to get us anywhere, and we're not going to be any closer to delisting. I think that, just coming to the grips that, after 30 years, we need to adapt recovery of what it's going to look like for the next 30 years. And bears, obviously, are expanding their range annually. So why change the multiple ecosystem organization structure? You know, I guess there have been a lot of discussions about this, but you know, some of the big items are it reduces needless duplication of effort in the current ecosystem approach. Many ecosystem subcommittees have subcommittees that are doing the same exact thing, but not necessarily talking to the other subcommittees about what they're doing. And I think that we could do a better job of having consistent messaging, consistent methodologies, you know, prioritize available resources to support more effective conservation, I think is always a good thing. And I think that, you know, we need to capitalize on the, I think, untapped potential for interagency coordination with areas that, you know, cover multiple, the entire range of bears. And like I said, increasing communication and the sharing of knowledge is super important. Obviously, in the back of our minds, addressing the Ninth Circuit ruling on the remnant analysis, we would be more effective if we broke down some of those administrative boundaries and addressed populations in a more range-wide manner. And acknowledge that ecosystem boundaries are not distinct ecosystems indeed. So what are the options? And obviously status quo is same old, same old. The second option, we named conservation teams. And the third option is a hybrid that came from discussions about, you know, what are the good things that could be potentially lost, and also what are the good things that we can move forward to move bear management and bear recovery further down the line, but yet maintain some of the current formats to make sure that we have good communication and good on the ground decision making for the everyday bear issues. So the conservation team concept would basically realign subcommittees to focus on the 5 primary bear recovery tasks. They're in the recovery plan: population monitoring, habitat management, conflict, information, education and outreach, and of course, research. Of course, changing the administrative boundaries to acknowledge that bears are moving in between and using the much greater area, I think is an important component. And then maintaining involvement of area-specific participation. You know, people have brought up the idea of, well, you know, people would be, if we went to conservation teams, that the people that participate in subcommittee meetings would no longer be allowed. And I think that is not a tenet of this proposal. I think the benefits would be, you know, it would benefit people outside the current lines of grizzly bear range, or what the administrative lines are. I think it would increase communication between areas across the range, encourage broader consistency, eliminate some redundancies, and would maximize, you know, the financial aspects of grizzly bear management. I think also, you know, the cons could be that it could reduce local engagement by shareholders. That would not be my goal. And I think that, you know, building those conservation teams to include those people in the appropriate ones that they felt their interest or expertise could lend to it, I think is a great idea. And I guess the other thing is it could, in small sub areas, or, you know, parts of the range, it could force some staff to be on multiple teams. And I guess I would like to stop and say, I'm not going to go through the status quo because we know that's what we always do. That's what we've always been doing for the past 3 decades. So the hybrid concept, is more adaptive in nature. And really, it starts off with expanding the overarching groups to range-wide focus for IEO, research, and conflict as just a starting point. Those are sort of universal items that I think that having research, obviously IEO has already started that at some level, but I think the work that the IEO subcommittee does, I think is important, and everybody within grizzly bear range can benefit from the work they do and be a part of those solutions. I think having research expand to a range-wide focus obviously doesn't mean that everybody's going to have to change the way they do what they do tomorrow. I'm just saying that we need to look for tools that can, lead to consistent approaches across the range. And I think having, the IGBST be involved in ecosystems at a greater extent, other than the GYE, I think would be important there again for information and coordination. And at some point, the goal would be for some consistency. And then of course, conflict. I think conflict is is something that happens, well, it does happen everywhere. And I think having that coordination over the range would be beneficial to all those people that deal with it and come up with new ways and try new things and always striving to do better, to keep more bears alive and more people happy. Secondly, maintaining the ecosystem subcommittees for local decision-making, coordination, communication, and maintaining those critical partnerships that really are the cornerstone of the success of those subcommittees in IGBC as an extension of IGBC, and also, keeping the habitat and population monitoring subcommittees, as at the smaller scale for at least the near future. And then, of course, changing those administrative boundaries to embrace, the larger range of grizzly bears. And really, look at, we have to look at modeling how grizzly bear expansion will be over the next 10, 20 years. And I think being able to look at those and create administrative ecosystem boundaries that, are better reflect what the future might hold, I think will be a benefit. The pros will be to maintain local communication and coordination. It'll increase the range-wide coordinated efforts on a lot of subjects and promote more consistent work across the range. And it will be inclusive and representative of the range for both public and people who manage those land and bears. I think one of the cons could cause more meetings for some people. The whole idea isn't that we do that, but I think that could be an inevitable issue. And I guess this is my last slide, and I'll open it up for questions, but really it's about bears. It's about the people that recreate in bear country. It's the people who live in bear country, and all the agencies that, that are part of, the combined effort of IGBC and making it better for everybody. So with that, that's the end of my presentation, and I'd be glad to open it up for any questions.
Okay, and Toby, I was just gonna do a time check. This is Jack. So we're down to about 6 minutes, but we can go a little bit longer. Really need input on this from the executive, well, from the IGBC. advisors, whatnot, but really need some input. You know, we had the initial questions that I put out there, and then, you know, maybe just what would you all recommend as far as there's still, you know, work to be done. We're not making a decision on this today. You know, it's the first presentation to the group at large. And so we need some input from folks on, okay, what do we want to go forward with? What work do we need to do on this? And some recommendations. Raise your hand if you could. Although I see Matt Hogan jumped up there, so I don't know, Matt, if you.
I just wanted Toby to know I was here and listening attentively. So, but I'm good right now. I've see if others have some questions.
Okay, questions or input or recommendations. Really need to hear from folks. Again, not looking for a decision today. Obviously, we're not ready for that, but definitely some idea of, okay, if we want to move this forward, and if so, how, in regard to work. Kristen, yay, thank you. Bale, you have your hand raised.
So we were able to discuss this at our subcommittee meeting on June 1st. And, you know, I appreciate the extra work on the hybrid approach, because that does reflect the feedback that we did receive. There were some folks that, you know, for example, from our British Columbia partners, that the I'll call it topic or emphasis, you know, area approach works better for them, because they you know, kind of approach things more from you know buckets of work rather than geographies. But there were others that very much were wanting to continue to maintain you know, the line officer and local engagement on certain decision making. So the fact that some things would receive you know, that better coordinated approach like research, but then still have that local engagement and involvement to really help further some of the on the ground decisions. I think that the hybrid approach does sort of reflect, you know, where the different perspectives were, but there was not unanimity by any means. And also just want to, you know, mention, you know, our particular subcommittee, the North Cascades, you know, the approach may or feedback may shift. You know, we're in this kind of limbo situation where, you know, we are awaiting our bears, and of course, you know, if if it's decided to go forward with the EIS again, you know, that might you know, change some folks' minds in terms of how we want to approach. But assuming we kind of continue the same course, I think this reflects the type of feedback we had, which was not one way or the other, but mixed, and the hybrid approach reflects that. Thanks.
Okay, so hearing support for that, at least lining up. And so we'll capture that, Kristen, thank you. And then looks like Jennifer Carpenter, I saw you pop up, and then you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just had just a few short comments. Thank you, Toby, for the presentation, and the questions. I think, Jackie, are really great questions for us to answer as a team. And I'd like to spend a lot more time looking at those questions and answers. One thing, and I know I've said this before, and I know lots of other people agree, but I really think that personal, you know, very place-based relationships at the ecosystem level are so important. I've seen that in the Yellowstone Ecosystem Subcommittee firsthand, and allowing the stakeholders to really interface with the land managers is so important. And I worry that might be lost in a broader conservation committee, especially in the conflict arena. I feel like that one could get so large across sort of the whole range that we might lose some of those place-based relationships. Perhaps as an idea, I know that the IEO sort of has that larger committee, and then they have the subcommittees, if you will, or the groups, I guess. I think that might be a concept that we could explore as looking at a hybrid approach, but those are just some ideas that I had and comments. Looking forward to further discussion. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. And so we are scheduled for a break at 10:45, and some of us have been focused on this, and so a break would be good. Maybe you can take that 15-minute break, because it's just, we're going to come back at 11 and think about this. We can reconvene at 11 and pick this up a little bit, and see where we go, but still looking for some input from folks. Okay, so what sounds like next steps, or absolute not continuation, but I think we're in some type of work going forward. Matt Hogan, I'll take you real quick.
All right, I'll be quick. So Jackie, I have a suggestion on a path forward, but I can hold it until we come back, or I can spout it out if the group wants to contemplate it as they contemplate everything else during the break.
Spit it out and we'll contemplate.
All right, so Toby, thanks. Great presentation and for teeing up a lot of issues. So, as we all know, we now have a new executive coordinator on board. He's just getting his feet under him. I guess what I would suggest is, Jackie, as chair, you appoint a team to be led or organized by David that would include the advisors, representatives from each of the subcommittees, and some representation from the executive committee to contemplate all the questions Toby raised and the questions you teed up for the group, and come back to us at our December meeting with some recommendations, because I think it's just a whole lot to try and absorb right now, and to try and make a decision might be a little difficult, but I think having a group take the next step and really do some more thinking on this is at least what I was thinking is worth thinking about. Thinking is worth thinking about. How's that for a statement?
Brilliant, Matt. Brilliant hit break. So love that suggestion. That's, I think, what we're looking for, because we clearly said up front that there's no decision today, because it's really, some folks are hearing and seeing this for the first time. And so let's mull on that. It is 10:47, so you're down to about 13 minutes. But if we could reconvene at 11, think about the conversation. I would ask if we could maybe share with our panelists that slideshow, if it hasn't been shared, that Toby went through. I think that would be really helpful as we think about this going forward. So I'm going to stop. David, we'll break, and then we'll get back at the top of the hour. All right, thank you guys. I'm going to go check on my sick puppy. Okay. All right, folks, almost time to get back, huh, David? We'll give it one, I think we have about a minute.
How's Fergus?
Man, I haven't seen him in quite as bad a shape. Little guy, I don't know if he got in mushrooms or what, but it was, I woke up to not a pretty sight and a really sad puppy this morning. So we'll see. He seems to, I got some rice in him, so I think we're stabilized for the moment. All right, it is straight up at 11 o'clock. Had a couple comments in the chat that very thought-provoking. Good job, Toby. Definitely some interest. We left right before the break with a suggestion from Matt Hogan, which was basically put a team together. David, welcome. This, as we talked about what could be part of your work. This could be a part of it, of setting a team up to then do some work between now and December and be able to come back and maybe at that December meeting be ready to make the decision, and we'll have it framed. So I'm laying that out now for folks of, that's a possibility if that's where we go forward at. I would be interested in any input, additional input about, does that sound right for folks to have a team do some work around it? Because this was conceptual, this was a recognition point. But we, like I said, knew there was not a decision to be made today because it was really the framing of it. So could we have some input from folks of, especially the exec team? Jim White, thank you. I see your hand raised. But yeah, need to hear from folks. So Jim.
Yeah, so I have
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Jim. David, can you hear him okay, or Toby?
No, he's got some bad feedback and then it just sort of went to zero.
Okay. Well,
oh, yeah.
I'll put something in the chat.
Okay, yeah, maybe put something in the chat. That would be great. Yeah, because it was, do you have two devices? It was almost like you have two devices going and the echo was coming, but yeah, all right. Anybody else have input, or I'm gonna call on folks of just, hey, what do you think? If I can't get input, Claudia, you weren't here yesterday, but again, do we go forward with something? Do we do the status quo? Should we do additional work? Claudia, what are you thinking as a voice?
Well, Jackie, I actually, I really appreciate Toby's presentation. I think Toby's making some important points. I think that Matt's suggestion that we form a team to really unpack this, to do a deep dive into the issues that Toby raises and the best solution to those issues. I think that that's really a great idea for a path forward. I just don't really see how we're going to get to an input in a quick discussion. I just think it will take some teamwork to really ponder it and then come up with some recommendations for us that way. So I fully support the team idea, and I agree with Matt's suggestion that the advisors should be members of that team. I realize that will be a big impact to Frank's time. I think it would be an important contribution. So yes, I support the team idea.
All right, and it looks like Kristen put in the chat that supports that setting up this team. How about, let's see, how about BLM? Mike, do you have any thoughts or kind of status quo, hybrid, or the proposal? What do you, or the work to go forward on it? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to review our organization after all these years. I think Toby did a great job laying out some options for us. I do think it's going to take a little more time to really delve into the details. My gut tells me after listening to Toby's presentation, I really like the hybrid approach at this point. One of the slides said that people are the key to bear recovery. And I really don't want to lose that local connection, but I do think we have just a lot of country that's between these ecosystems. So I think the hybrid approach will we maintain as much of the local connections as we have, but eliminate that gap between the ecosystems. So whether we have 6, 5, however many there might be in the future, but they would likely abut each other moving forward. So we don't have these gaps, and we involve all the communities within the geography, not just those that are near these 5 or 6 ecosystems. So I support the team to take that deeper dive. And I think it's timely to review our organization after all these years.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Let's see. I think we heard from Jennifer before. Anybody? Let's see. Who else? Melanie, I don't know if you're on or if you got off from Region 1. I'm not seeing you on there. Jim Unsworth, are you on? Do you have an opinion, support for establishing a team to do some work on this?
I am on, and I'm very supportive of the idea to continue to work on this. I think that we all need to start thinking about grizzly bears. We've seen logistic growth. It's very slow, but as populations really increase, numerically, we're seeing large increases in bear numbers across the landscape. And in particular, I think as Toby pointed out, it's time to provide and pay information and attention to all of these communities that are in between the historic ecosystems. And I think that there's some good logic behind recognizing that those were human boundaries and not necessarily biological boundaries, and that it's time to reconsider how we look at bears in this larger landscape that we're seeing them occupy.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. How about if I ask, is anyone opposed? Is there any strong feeling of we shouldn't at least establish this team, take a look at it, and be able to come back with maybe being able to be at a decision point in December? So that would be the work going forward. Is anybody opposed to that? Oh, and I just got input from Chris Savage. So Chris is supporting Region 1. Chris, representing Melanie, is supporting the team establishment. Okay, so we got their input. So anybody opposing that, I'll give you a chance to jump in. And again, the only decision we would make is that we are going to have a team do additional work on this. And I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Chris Swanson, it looks like from the attendee side, you have your hand raised. Do you have something? And thoughts?
Hey, Jackie,
Hey,
can you hear me?
yes, sir. Most definitely.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone here for this discussion today. I think it's reflective of what we're seeing with changes across the landscape with what the bears are telling us. We definitely see what Jim talked about, an increased movement that comes with a whole host of challenges, as everyone has talked about. And I think we have an opportunity when we put our heads together to look at, what are the key things that we should be thinking about beyond recovery systems or ecosystems. We do some exceptional work within the subcommittees. It's really been the backbone of the relationships that get recovery within these local geographies. But I think this is an opportunity to think about where we might find additional inertia between our partners to look at where we can promote recovery and also address conflict, and especially the education of our public and getting buy-in by engaging our local communities in these dialogues to ensure that we're working together as a diverse partnership, so that we listen to people, we understand where they're coming from, but the key through all of that is how we consider the science, the social, and even the economic and human dimensions pieces that are so critical to moving forward in grizzly bear recovery. So I think a team is a worthwhile venture, and there's certainly a lot of really smart people in the grizzly bear world that could come up with either some recommendations to move in this direction, or maybe some reasons that we're not even talking about that would cause additional things to consider if we were to go this way. Thanks, Jackie.
No, thank you, Chris. That was really well said. So let's see, we need to probably move to a point. Matt Hogan, your hand is up. How about let's hear from you, and then.
Yeah, so Jackie, I was just gonna make a formal motion just so we've got it in the record. I think it makes sense to give you some discretion as the chair, but I would move that the chair appoint a team to be led by our executive coordinator and include representatives from the advisors and the subcommittees, as well as members of the executive committee, to do a deeper dive on this issue and come back to us in December with some recommendations.
Okay, great. Now we have we have something we can move forward on or not. So David, would it be best if the exec team raise their hands to show support for that, or how do we want to do this?
So first you need a second though, so before you can.
Yeah. Right. I can't second it though. So could I get a
Jackie, I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Claudia. Appreciate that. So motion made by Matt, seconded by Claudia. So if we could see hands raised, maybe by, I guess, David, is that the best way for folks to hit their little hand raise, or how do we want to do it? You're muted, Dave.
Yeah, up to you in this virtual environment to see what works.
Jackie, I think you can just call it and just I don't know, and if anyone voices opposition, then you can always do a roll, but it seems like there's general support.
Thank you for help for moving this forward. So I called for anybody having against this earlier, and nobody spoke up or indicated that. So give you one more chance. If you are opposed to this, speak up. And I'm not seeing any hands raised. So I'm going to go with that's agreement, support for everybody. So I, as chair, will appoint a team, recognizing David as being the kind of the lead of it, and then members of the advisor group and subcommittee and executive group to work on this. And the intent will be to come back in December with a something that we could make a decision on, or at least a proposal, and we'll see where we end up at. Okay, David, you got that captured? Toby, excellent presentation, and really good job of kind of laying it out, and getting us to a point where we are at least having some forward motion. Okay.
Thanks, Jackie. I appreciate the opportunity to move forward with this and work more on it. So.
Fantastic.
Jackie, do you want to solicit interest from executive committee members or subcommittee about who might be interested in participating in that? Or how do you want to handle that?
I think that would be good, David. And if they could, if folks have an interest in being on this team, if you could let both David and I know of your interest, just send us an email. That would be helpful, because it is going to be work, and it is going to be, it could be maybe a little arduous. And so we really want folks who have some passion, interest, and ability to work on it. So, okay. So maybe by the end of next week, let us know if you have some interest, and then we'll kind of lay out some instructions for, maybe how to go about doing that. Okay. Great. Thank you. So let's move on to our next topic. If you look at the agenda, and again, this is the building upon the overall IGBC structure as we go. This next topic is the work plan discussion. And so related to the structure question is the question of our priorities in business management. We've been a little up and down in the time I've been involved in this, and I've been in and out for about 8 years. Our work plans kind of ebbed and flowed. What I'm hoping is that by the end of this meeting, we might be able to develop some guidance or assignments for the subcommittees, so we can get their feedback, and then we can plan to finalize an updated overall IGBC work plan again at the December meeting, hopefully in person in Missoula. And just to kind of do a little bit of a reminder, in 2019, we got together and we looked at our overall arching goals and to see if they were still right. We did that work then. I think that's what we want to look at now. Can we build objectives and outcomes under those goals and identify parts of the IGBC enterprise to be accountable for achieving those outcomes? So our overarching goals that we had lined out were based around recreation, interchange and dispersal, conflict reduction, strategies for the Bitterroot, Selkirk, Cabinet-Yaak, and North Cascades. That was kind of like a question mark for us. The whole population monitoring, and then communication, which we will always keep coming back to. And so looking for some discussion again amongst the executive group, and happy to field some input of how, what should we be looking at for this work plan discussion. And David, did I miss anything? I'll look at David and Toby on, is there something I missed, or something additional that would be helpful in setting this up?
I think that's great. And if you don't mind, I'll share a couple slides to sort of tee it up. If you think about sort of organizational management, our agenda this morning in some ways is almost exactly backwards. You start with what is the goal you're trying to achieve, your high level overarching goals. Then you figure out how to structure and deploy your human resources, and then your financial resources and your budget, and then maybe the mechanics of how you actually execute that budget. So recognizing that I'm brand new here to this group, and that this group has sort of recently expressed this intention to think about every level of that chain of how do you do your work, and what are your goals going forward? So let me share really quickly my screen. And again, you know, a point that my computer's going crazy. So this, again, in terms of human resources deployed, this was just a count. You know, the current executive committee and subcommittee structures are detailed in the charters. And there's explicit membership listed in those documents. And this was just a count of all of that explicit membership. And so, you know, it's not an insignificant commitment from all of the agencies and partners just to do IGBC meetings every year. So that's sort of an obvious statement. But again, in 2019, this group, you know, recognized, you know, began this discussion basically by looking at the work plan and looking specifically at the overarching goals and then the interaction with those overarching goals to the goals that are being worked on in subcommittees. And, you know, Jackie mentioned these a minute ago. And I guess as I think about the task to this team, you know, the team, I think, can do some staff work and, you know, as continue this idea of bringing back you know, possibilities, executable options. But really, it's the work of this full committee, you know, to just set this direction, just to decide, you know, this is a priority, you know, to advance the mission of recovery, delisting, and ongoing conservation of grizzly bears. So, you know, this is a starting point. This is what you landed on a couple of years ago. I guess I just want to note that there's a lot of overlap, or you know, there's a connection in that conservation team proposal that we just saw. You know, it's the things that rise above subcommittees, you know, have been stated in, you know, in many ways here in this meeting, whether it's conflict, whether it's science, whether it's information, education, and outreach. So, and then, you know, we've got, it's not, again, just this team, but it's the subcommittees themselves will be meeting this fall. And, you know, the same sort of realization or contemplation that you've had about, hey, things have changed, the bears are telling us something, you know, it may be time for that same discussion in subcommittees. So this is just a statement of the current, you know, our most recently articulated goals. And again, there hasn't been an executive coordinator sort of interacting with the subcommittees, you know, for some time now. But there's, even if you just look at these high level goals, you see that there's commonality. You know, they're working on similar topics. And, you know, again, the purpose of trying to state these goals is to help rally, you know, partners from different organizations with different assets and capacity, you know, towards that common shared, you know, collaborative set of outcomes. So I guess what I'm saying is it's all of the above. You know, there's a team that's going to do some work. We're going to need work from this group at the executive committee level. And I think the folks in the subcommittees who, you know, someone used the phrase backbone before. I mean, clearly you don't want to move away from the incredible work that's already been accomplished, you know, in that forum. So I guess, you know, that's sort of the way I'm thinking about things. And I guess I'm interested in direction from the subcommittee. If that sounds, I mean, basically we're opening up, you know, you've got a clear and I think very strongly held or shared mission statement. And so now the question is, okay, and, you know, what do you want to accomplish? What does success look like 5 years from now from the initiative that you're launching today?
Okay, well said. Great additions. and I'm looking, so again, looking for some input from our exec team in regard to, you know, what do you think about this? We've talked about it, and it actually I've been talking about it for a couple of years since that 2019 meeting. But this ties to, and it's come out multiple ways, I think, but, you know, like with the subcommittee work should be, you know, following what the IGBC Executive Committee has recognized as that priority work. And Toby spoke to earlier that there probably is some duplication of work going on, and, you know, we would want to, you know, not have that happen. So just thinking about how we would approach this. So, and Toby, I don't know if you have some thoughts, Vice Chair, or from your seat, but would like to hear from folks. You know, I have this, for everyone's knowledge, I have about a 10-second rule. If there's silence, I somehow feel this need to speak. So if someone doesn't talk, you're going to just listen to me for a while. Toby, it looks like your hand's up, and then maybe Chris Savage.
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, I guess, you know, looking at how the IGBC has been operating and where we're moving forward with, I think is important as it relates to work plans. And honestly, finding that sweet spot between local autonomy and guidance from the IGBC, I think is important in developing work plans and making sure that, you know, we all are checking and balancing each other on how we move forward, I think is super important. So I appreciate David's, you know, brief slideshow to sort of, you know, realign where we think they're going, and if that's really going to meet the needs for the future. So I really appreciate that. And
okay, great. Thank you, Toby. Chris Savage, your hand was there. How about we hear from you?
Okay, thanks, Jackie. And thanks, Dylan, for bringing me back in. Sorry about that. You know, I think, you know, the one thing that I would say, I'm going to, again, kind of preface this with my experience as a chair and vice chair on the subcommittee was, it, you know, was helpful to have the goals and objectives for us to follow. But I think the thing that got lost was when we would report out and things just, and never knew where that information went. You know, I mean, there was, you know, there's no annual summaries. There's no things that really show all, you know, some overall, you know, summary or report that shows, that's collective, that shows what all the subcommittees are doing. And it was a lot of work to put that stuff together. And not that it wasn't meaningful, but it just seemed like it just didn't go anywhere. And so I think if we continue with these work plans and track, you know, and trying to, you know, get information out of what the subcommittees are, you know, accomplishing and completing and the work that they're doing, I think it'd be really helpful if we find a mechanism that gets out and demonstrated to the publics, to the NGOs, to everyone, so that, you know, it's like a, you know, it's a complete circle of, you know, from the executive committee, here's what we're asking and here's what's getting accomplished. I think if we had some kind of structure like that, I think there would be a lot more merit to the whole program of work. Thanks.
You know, that's a great suggestion, Chris. And we have, I know in my day role, the Forest Service, we have, you know, that seems to be that part we end up missing, right? Like an accountability at the end of the year. And really it sets you up for that check and balance of, did we accomplish what we were trying to do? And then, or what do we have to carry forward? And so I'm intrigued by that idea of kind of like a report out, an annual report. And like you said, if we really, that's helpful for sharing to the public and NGOs and folks, interested parties of, here's what we did, what we started out trying to do, what we actually accomplished, and what we're going to go forward with. So I really like that idea. And maybe David and we can do some work around thinking about how would we go about it? What would that look like? But I like that a lot, Chris. A lot. Okay. Trisha O'Connor, your hand just popped up.
Yeah, I'm kind of tagging on from what Chris just said and kind of thinking about, you know, how the Yellowstone subcommittee has operated. And it seems like, you know, at the subcommittee level, we have sort of this ongoing, I'm thinking about our meetings, right? And what, and how we come up with agenda items. And so much of it is kind of the subcommittee, our subcommittee is there to actually help monitor what's going on within the Yellowstone ecosystem and report out to the greater, sort of the greater public, as well as the subcommittee itself. So there's kind of that work, which is, you know, what's going on with I&E information, what's going on with mortality for the year, what's going on with conflict, you know, so we assess all that and make sense of it, and also just relate that to the public. But then there's this other work that you've given the subcommittees, and I'm just thinking about the recent work around conflict. And I'm kind of agreeing with Chris. It's sort of like that, you know, the subcommittees have done all this work, we reported back, but I'm not sure there's any, okay, that's good, that's you know, I just think there's a piece missing around that. You called it accountability, or just the check-in of, is this meeting the overall goals of IGBC? So I like that idea of and I am not looking for more work with the sub, you know, but I think that it could be streamlined work and reporting that's just, you know, that's simplified, but that is meaningful. And that really is focused on, are we meeting the overall goals of IGBC? And again, that conversation might feed into the earlier conversation about, is our structure working or not, right? It's like that feedback loop. So I think that makes sense to be thinking about how those intersections happen, and maybe a bit more structure, but not too much, I guess, you know, coming from the autonomy piece. You know, I will always be a good advocate for the subcommittee's work as sort of having some autonomy that still fits within the greater, you know, with the greater goals that we're trying to do.
Okay, perfect. I think that's well said. And anybody else have any input or comments, concerns, ideas? I'm not seeing any hands. David, what are you thinking after just hearing what Chris said and Trisha's brought up, and Toby? What are you, anything spurring on in your mind?
Well, I think those were excellent comments. And, you know, I do feel like this interaction between the executive committee and the subcommittees is an important thing to be tracking here. And so you know, my understanding, you know, what direction I've been given here in this position is that I'm going to be participating in all of these subcommittees, you know, at least as a information conduit. And so I think that, you know, looking for patterns, looking for commonality, looking for topics that might be able to be raised to the executive group, and that's a communication line that opens up just from that. And then I think, you know, autonomy clearly is those local relationships clearly is a value in the subcommittees. But there's, you know, also this question of, well, what do you want? What does IGBC want? And if you were going to do a report, you know, you have to have it organized somehow. So it has to be organized around what is the work, what is the ship that you as executives have launched, you know, that's now coming home that we can report on. So I think that we're going to have conversations at all of these levels going forward.
Okay, and it looks like Matt Hogan, you have your hand up, and then Chris Savage.
Yeah, thanks, Jackie. I just reacting to what's been said and the comment David mentioned earlier about someone referenced the subcommittees as the backbone. And I really do think the subcommittees have done a lot of good and important work. And as I think about a relationship between an executive committee and subcommittees, I think it has to be a two-way street, right? Like as Ken McDonald said yesterday, and I agree, there should be times when the executive committee should ask the subcommittees to do some things. On the other hand, I think there's times when the subcommittees need to raise issues and bring it to the executive committee for further deliberation and decision making. So I think as long as maybe that's something that this team that you're going to charter could also add to its docket, is thinking a little bit more about what is that relationship. And I think having David attending the subcommittees will really help. I don't think we've had that in the past. And so we didn't have that kind of continuity of operations connection between the executive committee and the subcommittees. It was kind of ad hoc and required relationships and everything else to continue. So I think we're on a good path. I think maybe just a bit more thought about it with the subcommittee chairs, having some opportunity to share their thoughts would be good.
Yeah, well said, Matt. And I was reflecting of we hadn't had the executive director participate before like that. And then we have not had an executive director for 18 months. So there, I think maybe we're filling some additional gap there. But Mr. Savage, you had raised your hand, and then so let's.
David, I'd be willing to help you on this if you need a little help. Since I'm your supervisor and you're getting a lot of stuff. So, one of the things that I think is a really good model and is what I've seen, I'm fortunate enough to also have the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation liaison work for me. And, and that's, it's a very similar model, but even more subgroups, right? I mean, she's working across 9 regions. And I think there's some things that we can learn from them of how, how RMEF sets a structure and how they work to fund projects through their PAC programs. And then it's up to those folks to report how they spent their money and what was accomplished. And then the things that Matt just said, what they're looking for from the national. I think there's some things there that we could probably glean from that I think could help in this effort.
Okay, fantastic. And so we're all taking notes, David and I, and I'm sure others are too. But so Chris, you'll maybe work with David. I, of course, work with both of you, but I think we're moving with David's involvement between the subcommittees and the executive committee, as Matt laid out. It's going to probably help tremendously in improving our internal communication as well as our external communication. I really do want to explore, because the work that the subcommittees are doing, it is important. It is good work. It is fabulous work. And we should honor and respect that in a way of recognizing it. And then, providing the feedback of, okay, yeah, this really lined up, or, hey, we need something additional. So I want to, take on a bit of thinking through that before the December meeting of, how could we work on something like that annual acknowledgement report, status kind of thing. So, okay. So I will own some of that too. Toby, your hand's up, and then I think we'll move forward into the agenda, but Toby.
Thanks, Jackie. I guess the other thing I just wanted to say is that, I've been going to IGBC meetings for about 4 years now. And I guess from my perspective, I would like to see, and I think there's probably been an ebb and flow over its history, is the active versus passive participation of IGBC. And I think that we have a real opportunity, and I think taking a more active role in how this all goes down, and not just, sitting back and listening to some subcommittees report and just nodding our head graciously. I think in really being more active participants in grizzly bear recovery, I think is super important for us. And I think it's a duty that we should take on. However, finding that balance between, the field and the executives is always important too.
Okay. Well, great conversation. I think we've got some plan between David and Chris and I, and then maybe that team. I don't know if it was Matt that suggested it or somebody said of this team we're going to establish. This could be a part of that work as well. But I think this feels like it's we've got something good in front of us. And so let's see where we go forward with. Now there's a couple of things we still need work done. So we think about not necessarily as subcommittees, but work to be done before we get to the December meeting. We still got to clear up some of the budget stuff. So Toby, look at you and Lori probably to help us working with all the folks who are putting money into that to kind of get some of that figured out, because we have our new fiscal years, at least on the Fed side, starts the beginning of October. So just some responsibilities around that we need to do between now and December. And but I think we'll call it good on that subject, and then we'll do a report out. David, if you can make note to carry this forward into the December meeting, so that we can, make sure again that we capture how we progress and how we move forward. Okay. All right. So I have about 4 minutes before we get into the public comment section. And so I just want to do a quick roundup, and I'll start out by, just saying again, I very, very much appreciate the folks who, one, have stepped up and I'll say IGBC as a whole. So the whole way down through the subcommittee. It is a time commitment, and it is, and people do it because there's a lot of passion and professionalism around, figuring out and working with and conserving and protecting and managing the grizzly bear across North America. So I just want to express appreciation for the folks who have put time in, and everyone involved in IGBC, I know, puts time in outside of their paid hours, because there is that level of commitment and passion around this. So just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to the public and the NGOs and the folks who also contribute massively into the work around this species and figuring out how we all do our best in ensuring that it continues to be on the landscape in a way that is best for the bear and for the populations that live across that landscape. So appreciate the work around that. When a little reflection on the agenda we had the last 2 days, and it was interesting because we were trying to figure out how much time we needed, and did we have too much or did we have too little? And we got about I think we could have spent more time on quite a few of these, but I think we got close to an agenda that had quite a bit of meaning to it. So just to look at yesterday's topics, we had the agency updates. We had the welcome to the new folks like David and the subcommittee chairs that a lot of folks had changed over on. We had the updated status from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on kind of where they're at and what is going on that side of the grizzly bear management. We had 2 fantastic virtual field events that at least got us some sense of being out on the ground, what's happening out there, the good work that's happening, and the recognition, of maybe some work to come. And so really appreciated the Scott and the Kootenai trip, and then the one, I think it was John that presented in the afternoon with a whole set of folks that talked about that. So really appreciate it. We had the Ken McDonald gave us that Montana legislative update, because there's a lot going on in Montana. That seems to be the big place for action right now. So appreciated that from Ken. And sorry, my notes are a little skewed. And then the public comment, and again, I'll stress, it is important for us to hear from all of you and get your input. So thank you for spending the time with us. Thank you for sharing what you did yesterday, and we'll see what you have to share today. This morning, we set it up for this was going to be a big, meaty topic day. And so we had a great presentation by Lori around the budget and kind of understanding some of that. And we have some work to do around 21 and 22 and how we're going to move forward. And container program, the testing, WMI, all of that. The IEO update, again, Lori is kind of a rock star in being ready to handle multiple topics and multiple subjects, and did a fabulous job of kind of sharing with us the work that's going on, the good work that's going on. I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of updates on my computer. And then we went into this IGBC organization discussion and the work plan discussion, which is really important for us as we think about where do we want to be and what is the work of IGBC and how do we best accomplish it and how do we be efficient and not have multiple groups or people doing the same work. Are there ways we can gain some efficiency on that? Again, recognizing that with David on board, maybe we're going to be positioned to think through this and be lined up in a way we haven't been in a while. And so really looking forward to that. And that includes this work around the subcommittees and how do we recognize all the work that they're doing? How do we correlate it with the greater goals and objectives that we're trying to reach at the higher level for IGBC, and making sure that we do our part to help guide that and work with them, still allowing for some autonomy. And so I think we'll get some stuff going around that, and I will have this team. You know, one of the things we walked away from is we'll establish this team to work on that this discussion around IGBC organization and all the geographic pieces, that the management side of that, and then tied in with the subcommittee work. So that was kind of my summation of the last couple of days. And so we are actually 2 minutes over for going into public comment, but we'll allow the full 15 minutes. Dylan Tabish, if you are out there, you want to give us a reminder for the public of how we can do this and how they should do it if they have comments to share.
Yep. So anybody out there who has a comment, please raise your hand by hovering over your name and selecting raise hand, or press *9 if you're on the phone, and I'll unmute you.
Man, it's a quiet group today, I think. And again, this is your opportunity. If there's something you want to share, a point you want to make, a thought you want to leave us with, it is important that we hear from you. And we sincerely want to hear from you. It helps us as we move forward into being able to make sure we are not forgetting something critical or missing something that we would have an opportunity to work on, think about. David, are you seeing anything? I'm not seeing anything in the chat. We'll give it another minute, but then I don't want to hold folks to just stare at each other silently. With my 10-second rule, that doesn't work well. Dylan, are you getting any indication at all?
Nope, not seeing any hands raised. So if you'd like to comment, please raise your hand by selecting the raise hand feature on your computer, or if you're on the phone, press *9.
I think we have one phone call listener, so that's all I see up on the list. We'll give it till 11:50 and then maybe we'll call it good. And I will say, everyone is always welcome. You know, I received that note yesterday that we'll respond to in regard to the whole meeting piece, but you know, I certainly welcome input. If you have something you want to share with the IGBC, you can send it to David and I, and we welcome engagement and input that way. So Dylan, it is 11:50. We gave it a couple of minutes, but I am certainly not seeing anybody step up.
Yeah, not seeing anybody.
Okay.
And for those, I guess, out there listening, as always, David and I will have all the reports posted to the IGBC website. Videos of these meetings will be loaded to the IGBC website in the next few days or by early next week. And so anybody who needs to go back and review anything that was presented, that will all be available on the IGBC website under the executive committee section.
Okay, well, I think we'll call it good. David, anything from you or Toby before I close it out?
Thanks for running the meeting. That was a great summary and recap. Appreciate that.
That was all off in my head, so hopefully I didn't miss something critical, but you have good notes, David, so thank you.
I've got nothing else, Jackie. Thank you. Running a great meeting, and look forward to the work between now and December for sure.
Okay, so I'll just close out with a heartfelt and professional thank you to everyone that's participated the last couple of days and everyone that continues to do this good work, great work around the grizzly bear. And so I wish you all well. We'll for sure reconvene, hopefully in person in Missoula in December. But we've got some work to do between now and then. I will get a response out by next week, you know, just a letter to respond to the letter I got yesterday, and look forward to working with all of you as we go forward. All right, so be well, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.